morning, good afternoon, good evening. Ever since the August 2023 elections in Zimbabwe, there's been speculation that SADC was going to do something about it. SADC had an election observer team led by Dr. Neves Mumba of Zambia. And the team condemned the election process as flawed and illegal. Their conclusion was clear, crystal clear. The process was flawed. It is therefore unbelievable that SADC accepted that report and yet decided to do nothing about it. They had a meeting and they accepted the report. What has been really annoying, to say the very least, is that SADC has failed to communicate that decision publicly. We have accepted the report that the Zimbabwe elections were not free, fair, and credible, but we've decided to do nothing about it. What is wrong with that? That is what you've decided. Let's get on with it. But no, they said nothing about it. They've never communicated what their decision was. And by their silence, they've granted ZANU-PF political legitimacy. And ever since, for the last 9 months, every so few weeks, a report was circulating in the social media that SADC has been approached and is considering doing something about Zimbabwe's flawed elections. And most of those reports would have emanated, no doubt, from the Chamisa camp. This is the first time I, for one, am seeing it on the main social media, on the main social media report and newspaper. This was a report, according to what is circulating on the social media, from the NewsDay. They're now exclusively, they're saying they're revealing this exclusively, that Chamisa has approached SADC and that SADC is now seized by the matter. It's unbelievable. 9 months after the election, the regional body is still seized with the matter. Why didn't they deal with it all these months? This kind of report, even if it is fake, is not doing SADC any favors. It only helps underline that SADC is indecisive and incompetent, to say the very least. I hope this report will finally get SADC Secretariat to come up with a decisive statement on the matter. and end all this nonsensical speculation. Let me say this, I've said it before. SADC have every reason to do nothing about the Zimbabwe rigged elections. It is none other than Chamisa and his friends who insisted in participating in last year's elections, knowing fully well that the process was flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, they'll be giving ZANU-PF political legitimacy. They've known this all along. The most clear-cut case of that was in 2013. At the end of the GNU, SADC realized that MDC guys had not implemented even one token reform. And to let the 2013 elections go ahead without those reforms was nonsensical. And so the original body called a special summit in June 2013 in Maputo. And at that summit, they advised Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends that they should not participate in those elections without first implementing the reforms. The advice was ignored. They went ahead and participated in those elections. ZANU-PF blatantly rigged the elections. And SADC turned a blind eye to the rigging and granted ZANU-PF political legitimacy. We also know why MDC guys participated in those elections, knowing fully well that the process was flawed. It was great. We can't keep on rewriting the same issue over and over again and pretend that we don't know. This was a quotation from David Coulthard, who clearly admitted that they knew the elections were flawed, ZANU-PF was rigging them, and that participating would only give ZANU-PF legitimacy. But they still went ahead and participated out of greed. They did the same thing in 2018 and repeated the same thing last year. And so it is nonsensical that Chamisa then should go to SADC and complain that the election were rigged. But you knew that. You have known it all along. And you are the one who decided you were going to participate. You were even boasting that you have plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Why SADC are engaged, are seized by these disputed elections, beggars belief. We cannot hide from the fact that it was Chamisa and company who wanted the elections to go ahead, regardless of the reality on the ground, that the ZANU-PF would rig the elections with no reforms implemented. He didn't care. He and his friends didn't care. All they wanted was a share of the spoils of power. And indeed, even after SADC and the AU election observer teams had condemned the process, those CCC individuals who had won the seats went ahead and took up those seats. And they even publicly claimed that they'd won those seats because those are liberated zones. Elections in those areas were free, fair, and credible. That's undermining SADC's own report that the election process was flawed and illegal. You cannot cherry pick. There's no way you can say some areas in that election process was free, fair, and credible. All constituencies use the same voters' roll. And that voters' roll, we know, was flawed. It had so many irregularities. Some of them you could see they are meant to help ZANU-PF win the elections. People found themselves who had voted the year before the last election, their names suddenly taken off the voters' roll. Some cases, their names moved from one ward to another, one polling station to another. Why? They never requested those things. Many people who should be in the voters' roll only found on the day of voting so that they are not on the voters' roll. The important thing here, which is beyond dispute, is that the process was so flawed, so illegal. The logical step to have done is not to participate. That was a rational thing to do. But you could never get these opposition guys to do so because of greed. The other thing that one has got to ask here is, Chamisa, if he's the one who's pushing SADC to do something about the disputed election, one has got to ask, to what end and purpose? CCC imploded just a few weeks after the 2023 election results were out. The CCC members started fighting for those few Graviton seats. A number of them were recalled, and they've been recalled and replaced. Where there was need to hold by-elections, the by-elections were held, and ZANU-PF claimed those seats. So now ZANU-PF has got a supermajority in parliament, thanks to the infighting in CCC. CCC is fractured into 4 different bodies, all fighting each other for the spoils of power. Chamisa himself has since resigned from the party as president in January, claiming that the party was heavily infiltrated by ZANU-PF. He doesn't even have a political party right now. And so he's writing to SADC to pressure them to do something about the disputed election. One has got to ask, to what end and purpose? Is he asking SADC to declare Mnangagwa illegitimate and appoint him the president? Is he expecting, as many people have said, that SADC will organize fresh elections There's been rumors saying SADC will hold fresh elections in June. That's next month. Fresh elections when the opposition has imploded? Is this not just going to give ZANU-PF legitimacy? Chamisa has not even announced his new party yet. And yes, you will have less than 2 months to form his new party and be involved in elections. I think if the people of Zimbabwe deserve free, fair, and credible elections, they need to also have meaningful alternatives put before them. If all Chamisa wants is to be president, is he going to be president with no members of parliament, no senators, just on his own, and a few of his close friends form an administration? I think the people of Zimbabwe deserves a better organized government than that. SADC, if I was SADC, I would not want to be involved in such a harebrained scheme to organize or to call for fresh elections in Zimbabwe with the opposition that has just imploded. Would be the most irresponsible thing they could possibly do, because it will only give ZANU-PF the opportunity to consolidate its power. If ZANU-PF, according to Chamisa, is the one that infiltrated SAC and lit the fuse that resulted in the party imploding, holding fresh elections now would be to the advantage of ZANU-PF. They're benefiting from all their hard work of infiltrating SAC and make it totally dysfunctional as a political entity. Why would SADC, a regional body, want to be involved in that beggar's belief? Even if they had wanted to deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy, denying ZANU-PF political legitimacy in the present circumstances would be foolish, to say the very least. I hope this NewsDay article will really get the SADC leaders and the secretariat to sit up and do something to clear this mess once and once for all. SADC made a decision to do nothing about the damning report that clearly said Zimbabwe's elections were not free, fair, and credible. Even if one was to say that was a wrong decision, it was a decision. They've made it. And like all responsible bodies, they should live with the consequences of that decision. They should stand behind it. They should come out right and say, in the circumstances, SADC found it very difficult to do anything about that report. And that will be the most rational thing to do. The people of Zimbabwe themselves participated. The opposition participated. The opposition conned ordinary Zimbabweans to participate in flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, knowing fully well that by participating you are giving ZANU-PF legitimacy. And that's what the people did. And SADC found itself incapable of doing anything else. As much as they would have wanted to deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy, they could not. So they've decided to do nothing about it. They should come out right now and saying SADC's position on Zimbabwe election is that they were not going to do anything about it. And put this whole speculation to bed. If SADC is truly interested in Zimbabwe getting out of this mess, allowing this idiotic speculation to continue is not doing the country any favors at all. The country should be focusing on how are we going to get the reforms implemented. I believe we're not going to get any reforms implemented. ZANU-PF has no intention of implementing any reforms. And Chamisa and company have already made it very clear that they intend to win rigged elections. So they're not implementing any reforms. The only thing that people of Zimbabwe must focus on now is to accept that these elections are flawed. And there's nothing that can be gained by participating in flawed elections. If the people of Zimbabwe did not participate last year in their millions, I think SADC would have found it much easier to act and to deny ZANU-PF legitimacy. SADC has come up with a report condemning those election processes as flawed. Without any meaningful reforms implemented, 2028 elections will be equally flawed and illegal. And therefore then, the rational position that any thinking Zimbabwean should take is to say, no, we are not going to keep on participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. People should not participate in the 2028 elections without reforms. Made that foolish mistake in 2013, repeated it in 2018, repeated it again in 2023. How many times do you have to repeat it before the penny finally drops that it is futile to keep participating in election processes that you know are flawed, that you know by participating you only give vote rigging ZANU-PF legitimacy? And as for SADC, I repeat, SADC should step in, issue a statement, and clearly state that SADC is not seized in any way with the Zimbabwe disputed elections. They've decided to do nothing about denying ZANU-PF political legitimacy. And there's no need for this endless speculation and nonsensical claim that SADC is doing something about it. There is nothing that SADC can do. Seized on the disputed elections, to what end and purpose? What would they hope? What would anyone be hoping to achieve by revisiting those seized elections, rigged elections, in the light of the opposition has imploded? deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy to give who legitimacy? Chamisa. Chamisa will be president when he doesn't even have a member of parliament. He doesn't even have a political party. We cannot keep on talking such nonsense. We make progress. This is a clear-cut case where there is really no point in pretending that there is anything to be gained from revisiting the rigged elections in 2023. Nothing. Why SADC has allowed this speculation to continue beggars belief. SADC should come up with a statement clearly distancing themselves from this kind of nonsensical speculation. There is nothing to be achieved by revisiting Zimbabwe's disputed elections. Nothing. Thank you very much for those of you who've been able to join us and listen. And we hope you'll be able to join us again at 7 o'clock UK time this evening or 8 o'clock Zimbabwe time. Thank you and